fellas, welcome in. We are here for season 2, episode 3, or if you're looking in order, it's technically like episode 12. So
it gets confusing from time to time.
It gets confusing. So, Brady, just to kind of hit. So this, as we're recording this past week, episode 11 dropped, right? And we had a lot of good downloads, almost at 100, guys. Nice. Had a lot of good compliments on the new edition. So you did a great job, right, Brady.
I'm convinced Brady made the spikes and streams go up. It probably was not us, Adam, for sure.
I mean, you got to think in the roles that the two of y'all have. It's like, think about the Wizard of Oz, right? Like Brady's always been the one behind the curtain, right? Like Benji, you're always out in front. You're the PR guy. You always talk, and Brady, you kind of hide behind and do all the, you pull the strings and do everything, so people get to see you.
I love that though. I would not have it any different.
That's what makes a great team, though. I mean, you look at any sports program, whatever. They have people out front, they have people behind the scenes, but it takes everybody, including what you do, Adam, to make it all come together.
Yeah.
I've gotten many texts this week. I know, Adam, you have too, just of people saying, man, just thank y'all for being back finally, And we got some really good stuff planned for you guys. We really do. Just stay tuned. Stay connected, and it's going to be good. Just got to follow the process. Stay with us.
Yeah, we got it.
Now, Adam, I know one thing y'all talked about, which I talked about on the first episode, was my background, my studio.
We are working on that.
Y'all gonna work on that for me, because that is not my strong suit by any means.
Did you notice he said Mac ground? He didn't say background. Mac.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say Mac ground? Huh.
Yeah.
Hey, This is payback for all the times that I call you Benji when you and I were meeting, and you're like, I'm ready.
That's exactly right.
So for all of our listeners, if you hop over to our YouTube page, you can see we're working on Brady's setup. This is new to him. He's got to have this.
Stay tuned.
We're gonna get him right. We're gonna get him right.
We'll get him right. So, but no, again, just it's been a lot of fun. A lot of good compliments. I think that people are excited that we're back. We've got everything planned through the end of the year. We'll have at least 7 episodes is what our hope is. We'll get to that by the end of the year. So we'll hopefully get those in and get them recorded for you guys. So we're excited. But speaking of hope, today we're jumping into that. Benji, you kind of said, don't give up hope was kind of your title as we jump into that. But we're going to talk a little bit about that. I think we hear the word hope a lot. I think sometimes it can be just a cliche term that people use when they don't have an answer. You're like, I think, Brady, I've said that to you several times in meeting. You're like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, I hope to. And your response is always, Adam, hope is not a good strategy.
Not a good strategy.
It's interesting because Brady mentioned this actually on the We Are Back episode. He talked about, hope is not a strategy, right? We've heard this for years. Our dad told us this for years. And there's actually, I'm going to say 2 connotations to that, because I think in one sense you'll hear later today that there is hope. But in the business world, don't give up hope becomes just a cliche statement that people make. And what they're really saying is, I hope I can be successful. I hope I can do this. When in reality, they don't have a plan in place, right?
That's right.
And if hope, because hope is not a strategy, it really, it says this, okay? It conveys the idea that action is more important than words and careful planning is more valuable than lofty ideas.
That's good.
So what does strategy do, okay? Is a strategic plan for you business owner, you leader, manager. Do you have a plan in place? Okay. I would be remiss if I didn't say that Brady probably has helped our team. I won't say the largest strategic plan in history, but that 30-something pages long from 2023, getting us to our plan for 2024. We look back just this few weeks ago, we were like, man, look at everything that we had been able to accomplish this year. If we didn't have the plan in place, we couldn't do it. What does it look like? Okay, what does this look like? Culture is important. Peter Drucker said this back in 2006. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Okay, we have a gentleman who works for us, Steve Geis, who loves this statement. But we also heard someone else say it this way. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's not just breakfast. Your culture drives everything that you do. All right. So no matter how strong your strategic plan is, its efficacy will help your team members if you're not following the plan. Okay. Do either of y'all know what the Fabian Journal is? You ever heard of that?
No, when I was reading your show notes, I was trying to figure out what that was.
Well, I didn't know either. Chat GPT helped me with this. So I use the Bradyism. So the Fabian Journal online, and I have no clue what it is. It says it sets a transformation vision and a roadmap to realize the strategy that is compatible with your culture. Okay. So how can we have hope in our world, in our business? I look at hope as a dream idea, me personally. I don't know how you feel about it, Brady, but I look at hope. People say, I hope I can do this year. But they're really saying, I'm dreaming that I think I can do this. Mm-hmm. And if you look at hope as a dream idea, if you don't have hope, you definitely don't have a plan. Okay? Because if you have a plan, it gives you a roadmap to where you can go. Think about this. If you're a pilot, okay, do you think they have a plan before they take off?
Absolutely.
They have
I would hope so.
I would hope so.
That's a great strategy. Exactly. So think about this. They have to look at the weather patterns. They have to look at how high they're actually going to fly, the winds. Think about the turbulence that we get in sometimes on the airplane, right? They got to go up or they got to go below it to get us back on track. So what is the most important instrument in the cockpit? And by the way, this is not a joke. What do you think it is?
I would think the pilot's journal, right? Where he's
planning.
The black box?
Everyone would say the black box, but Adam's right too. I think the pilot's journal, what they've written down, because maybe they've taken that flight before. This is not a joke. You can look this up yourself, and I know they say that everything on Google is true, but whatever. It's the attitude indicator. Most people...
Wait, you mean altitude, right? Altitude?
Most people think it's actually the altitude, but it's not. It's the attitude indicator.
He had me for a second. I'm like, are you
I know, he did me
Are
too.
You saying this right?
It actually, the attitude indicator is a primary instrument for instrument flight and is also useful in conditions of very poor visibility. Pilots are trained to use these instruments in combination should this instrument or its power fail. The attitude instrument. I'd never heard of that. Never heard of it. Again, I thought the same as you guys. Altitude,
yeah.
But if you look at the attitude indicator, put that back in the world, the business world, what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Doesn't it go to reason that people's attitude can take them higher in life than someone who may not have a good attitude?
I'm gonna let Brady hit this one because this sounds
as you're talking about that, Benji, I'm thinking about a couple things, and we're actually going to talk about this in another episode, having an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. But I heard somebody say one time that you're talking about having a dream, right? So a dream really is just a wish without a plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a wish without a plan. We say it in our organization all the time. We quote Zig Ziglar, but if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. So
that's a fantastic quote, by the way.
I'm sitting here thinking about, okay, and I know you're going to go through some practical things of how do we have hope, and I'm just wondering if we have more hope by having a plan, because if you think about the opposite of hope is hopeless, right? And so being hopeless is not knowing where you're going, not knowing what's going to happen. And just because you have a plan doesn't mean that actual plan is going to come to fruition. But it does mean that you actually have something to go off of. You have listen, every software company in the world, when they're developing a big software thing, they have something called a roadmap.
Yeah.
And milestones. And a plan how to get there. They don't just have their programmers start, okay, we have this idea. Y'all start going to go to town and start coding today. Just whatever you think of, y'all just make it happen. It doesn't work like that. There are iterations to the plan as you go along, but you have to have a good plan. And I think if you have that plan, if you have something that you're aiming at, that you're not aiming at nothing, I think it honestly gives you more hope, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
I'm gonna hit y'all with this just because, and I kind of told y'all was.
Hit me with it.
So I'm an ESV guy. Okay, so don't judge me if you're not.
That's all right.
So
that's all right. I like ESV.
So Hebrews 10:23 is what it said. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. So the reason I even brought this up, we talk about, especially in the business world, hope's not a good strategy. But with our faith, we put a lot of hope that God's going to answer the promises that we have, that we ask, that we pray for, the things that we deal with, what we stress, what we go through. So let me pitch that to y'all. How, in terms of our faith compared to business, how do you do that when hope's not a good strategy for business, but we do have that hope in Jesus? We do have that hope in him that the things that we're bringing to his feet are either going to happen or be answered. How do y'all see that? How do they go hand in hand a bit, especially in a business where everything that each of you do is tied to faith, is tied to those things? How do those go hand in hand? And for other business owners that maybe are struggling with the same thing, how do you make those two work in the same world?
I think that's a great question, Adam. And where my mind goes is, okay, so you're right. Hope is a good strategy when it comes to our faith.
Yep.
Hope is not a good strategy when it comes to business. But when you start merging those two worlds together, then the way that I think about it is in the difficult times, which are coming. If you're a leader and you haven't had difficult times, then just wait, because they're coming.
Something's
It's right around. It's right around the corner. So what hope does is, because we have faith in Jesus and faith in something that's much bigger than we are, what it really does is gives us a foundation. Okay, and what I mean by that is, when those hard times come, and they are coming, is if I've been through several things that I don't know how other people go through that without having their faith. Like, it's not even, I'm thinking, I don't know how people would go through this, because it's not even possible. So where the hope comes in is that the Lord's got you. He sees you. He knows the situation that you're going through, and there's hope that you're going to come out of it, because we look to him for our provider. We look to him for our provision, not to us. And so that hope in that moment helps us reset what we're really here to do.
Yeah.
That's the way that I see it.
Because when I feel that, my faith, like I feel like that hope, and I'm going to use the word confident. Hope is a confident expectation for me that those things that I've prayed about, those blessings, are coming. This is, and I'm not going down the road like, if I do good, God's gonna give me the. I'm not. That's not the road I'm going down. For me, I'm confident that those things, that those blessings are coming, and God's going to provide those, especially doing his will, especially doing if I'm doing what I'm called to do, right? If I'm in his giftings, if I'm doing those things. If I'm outside of that, it doesn't matter how much I hope, it's not going to come. For me, if I'm living where I feel like God has planted me, doing what he's gifted me to do, those blessings will come. And I feel like that's the same thing for each of you doing in business. You're living out what God, you talk so much about. It's not just about our family. You're expanding family trees. So the two of you are affecting not just your own family, but you're affecting others. So that's why I feel like you've seen success in business, right? That's why I feel like you've seen growth. You've seen those things because you are confidently living out what God has gifted each of you to do.
Yeah, I would answer it this way. I love you throwing the verse in there, because hope in the spiritual sense is the strategy, right? We have to have faith. It's proven through history. Okay, this is not a myth, not a legend. It's proven through history that Jesus Christ came here over 2,000 years ago and was born of a virgin and died 33 years later. He's the only one that has not only resurrected but ascended to heaven, People actually saw this with their own eyes. And the next 2,000 years, we've been hearing the same story, okay? It's the only story that has never changed.
Yeah.
And I believe, from a hope perspective, that Jesus is our hope. But I also believe that sometimes, like Brady said, we come to that realization in the world that you have two paths you can take, okay? Our faith says, Lord, we believe in you. We know you're going to take care of us, right? That is our strategy. We know that you're going to take care of us. But I believe the Lord gives us the knowledge to go, you choose the path. I know where you're going to end up, but you have to choose the right path. Are you going to go down this lane or this lane? And I think 100% of the time we get back on the right path, right? Most people get back on the right path.
Yeah.
Sometimes a bad decision's made, whether it's in your business, your family, whatever. Bad decisions happen all the time. But I believe we come to the realization with hope that we get back on the right path. And the strategy is, which path are we going to take? So that's the plan, right? We're gonna take that path. I love how you use that verse. It's fantastic.
This is what I know. A hope in God is a hope that will never disappoint. That's the way that that's the way that I see it.
Yep. It's and you look at this again, going back to that pilot analogy in business, the instruments that we have on a day-to-day basis is data. We've heard this for years. Data drives decisions, right? If you don't have the data in front of you to figure out how you're going to make the best educated guess of where you want to take your business, the strategy, hold people accountable. We talk about training. How can we continue to train our people every single day to get better? Even if it's the same training, sometimes it takes us. We've talked about that 7 times, 7 ways. You know, there's a reason why in the football world, by the way, we love football. Obviously, you know that.
We're in the South.
Well, yeah, of course. If you look at it, they practice blocking and tackling like it's going out of style in the off season and in the regular season. They're practicing
Fundamentals.
the same thing over and over and over again.
Alabama did not practice that this past week, though.
We weren't going to talk about that. Hey, Auburn's having a terrible year. It is what it is. But how about them Cowboys? Them Cowboys are getting it done, right? And you think about this, okay? Don't give up hope, because too many people give up too easy because they don't have a plan. Yeah. It's not that they have the best dream in the world. They want to take their company to the next level. They want to excel, but it's because they don't have a plan. If you need help with a plan, find someone. You're welcome to contact us if you're listening to this. Send us a text. You can do that through our system. Send us a chat on YouTube or whatever. We'll be glad to try to help you with a plan if that's what you want.
Yeah.
But no plan, you're guaranteed to not succeed as well as you could have.
Yeah. It's so important, too, because, you know, we spent so much time this past year, Brady and I, just looking at from a digital marketing aspect. Like, all right, we're spending a lot of money on digital marketing. Are we getting – and what I felt like is we get a lot of calls, and you and I talked about this so much, Brady. I'd get calls from other businesses, other franchises. Hey, how much are you spending? What are you doing? I'm like, all right, well, this is what we're doing. And the first thing I would always ask them, hey, what data do you have? I mean, like, how many jobs are you getting? Of the jobs you're getting in, how many of those are you closing? Of the jobs that you're closing, what's your average cost per job? And these are all questions like, I don't know. Well, we can't help you figure out. These are the things you've got to have, the basic data information.
Yep.
It's like what Benji's saying. You can't make decisions without the data. Now, yes, starting things out, you're going to have to start collecting that first. Like that. Yeah. Sometimes that's your decision. That's your strategy, like to begin collecting the data. I thought it was absolutely crazy when we talked about listening to every phone call that came in from Google. I was like, I don't have time for this. We ain't doing this.
He did say it exactly like that, by the way.
I'm sure.
I was like, we're going to sit here. But there hasn't been anybody else that was able to call us and have the information we had. Even the company we were using to help push those things through, they were like, nobody has this. Like, nobody has this. And so because of that, it allowed us to develop a strategy. And here's the thing. We probably cut costs by 70% because we realized we were spending a lot of money. we weren't getting the return where we needed. And, that was whether that, and we talked a lot back too, because it just came full circle. Like, well, the jobs are coming in, but is the team trained to close those jobs? Are they trained to sell those jobs? So what it did is it allowed our team to start working together. Like, all right, well, you need to work with the production needs to work with marketing, and all these different things we started doing. And all of that, the strategy, what came from, all of it came from simply collecting data. And to me, that to me is a big part, because that's where you say hope's not a good strategy. Well, that's because now we're not hoping. We know what we're doing.
Well, Adam, you threw out a verse, so I'm going to throw some back at you. Is that okay?
Yes, I'm ready to go.
All right. So, this whole concept of hoping and planning and all that, Proverbs 16:9 says this. It says, the heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. So he does ask us to plan. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I think if you couple that with in Psalm 119, which this is actually our theme verse this year for our leadership team, that he's a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. And the way that we're using that is we are going to have a good plan. We're going to have a good strategy, and then we're going to pray before that to make sure that the Lord shows us what the plan is so that we can follow that plan. But my interpretation of that verse is, while I would love for him to give us a spotlight and show us, a mile down the road and exactly what's going to happen, it just doesn't work like that. He says, a lamp unto my feet. What does that mean? That means he's going to show me the next step. And then I've got to be obedient to take that next step.
Yeah.
A lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. So the path is just the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. But even though we can have hope in business and personal, we still have to take action.
Yeah.
We can't just, sit on our hands and say, okay, well, I hope, I remember a story that I was told, I think it was from a pastor years ago, there was a flood coming and heavy rains, and a guy got on his rooftop, right? Adam, you and I've talked about this story.
Mm-hmm.
The guy got on his rooftop, and he's like, Lord, 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 I need you to save me. I need you to save me. I need you to save me. And so a helicopter comes by, and he's like, no, I'm good. The Lord's going to save me. And then a boat comes by, and he's like, no, I'm good. The Lord's going to save me. Well, the guy ended up, drowning. And he ends up dying and going to heaven. And he's like, Lord, why didn't you save me? He goes, I sent you a helicopter. I sent you a boat. You didn't do anything about it.
You didn't take advantage of. But it's funny you say that too, because Adam, wasn't it rewarding though to see the results of something as silly as, think about that, as listening to every call, mm-hmm. and you could figure out a way to get the data that you needed, mm-hmm. and we could have said, well, here's our hope. We hope that this Google, gives us this return on investment. Mm-hmm. Without a strategy and a plan in place to help us get there, we wouldn't have known to get with the team to do this and get with this group to do this. So you have to have that in place. You have to.
And people don't realize, it sounds silly and it sounds tedious, and it is tedious. It is tedious because we get a lot of phone calls. But what came from it is not just having the data, but we were able to train our team, like, hey guys, this is how we're answering the phone, right? This is what customers are hearing from us, right? So not only that, but it allowed us to dial in, how do we talk to a customer? Like, what needs to be said? Like, what needs to be discussed? Brady, something you talked about is like, hey, how do we help them faster, right? Mm-hmm. How do we collect their information and don't make them feel like we're rushing them? But, especially in that industry, time is of the essence. We got to get there, get things dry, get things going, whatever the case is of the emergency. So each one of those things allowed us to look at different pieces. And we were telling our team all the time, even from Google reviews, everything is an ecosystem. It works together because the customer finds us, we do a good job, we help them, we get paid off a business, they leave a review, brings them the next customer, we move into reconstruction. It comes full circle back around, right? So every little piece does that to have that strategy in place. And like you said, Benji, it all came from something as silly as like, let's listen to a phone call. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it also reminds me, and we've said this very often, is, like what is the definition of luck? And we look at people and we're like, that Team Wilson, that Adam West, they're doing such great things and they're just so lucky, right? Well, the definition of luck is really where hard work and opportunity meet.
Yeah.
Yep.
That means that you've done the hard work, you've made the hard decisions, you've put the plan in place, and then the opportunity comes along to where you can take advantage of that opportunity, and it just looks like everything meshed.
Yep.
But it's because you put in the work.
Well, and I heard a story one time where I've seen it on social media, but it talks about it was a big cargo boat that had broken down, right? And they were looking for somebody to fix it. They're like, we'll pay anything, we'll fix it. We've got to get our business back rolling. And so the guy comes in and he was like, all right, I'm going to fix it. It's going to cost probably about $50,000. And they're like, all right, we'll do it. Takes him 15 minutes. And he fixes it.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, hold on. Why are we paying $50,000 for something that took you 15 minutes to fix? And he said, he told him, he said, did you know how to fix it?
Yep.
You can't discount the 50 years of experience to be able to do that.
That's powerful right there. Yeah, that's good.
And that's where it is. And I mean, even in my own world as a content creator, we were talking about this the other day with one of the teenagers. We were talking about, what do you charge per hour? How do you do these? I said, don't discount the work that you've put in. Somebody else it may be the only time they need family portraits, or maybe the only commercial video they may be in. You may hit them, you're like, hey, it's going to cost $5,000. They're like, $5,000? Like, that's a lot. And I'm like, yeah. And I said, you can't discount what's taken to get there. And like, well, it's not going to take you that long to edit. I said, yeah, now, but I can tell you in the beginning, it took a long time. And
let me tell you about all the hours that I spent up late night and trying to figure all this stuff out.
Right? It's not just the video and the photo shoot. The editing on the back end takes a long.
Yeah, and and it's not just that, but it's thinking about like even the gear. Like we were talking with her about that. I'm like, hey, don't, because she was like, oh, I want to do this, and then I was like, all right, well, don't forget, you've got to have this lens. That's going to cost you $2,000. Oh wait, you're doing a different type of shoot. That's going to cost you another $2,000 because you got to have a different. Then you got to buy the camera, and then I was like, don't forget your SD cards. They're about $150 a piece. So I'm thinking, I'm like, so as people look through and they see those things, you can't discount that, right? Like you can't discount those things. If I need to get something printed, I love to hear it said. It's like, do you want, cheap work? What is it? Good work isn't cheap, and cheap work isn't good. So it's like, which one do you want? So that's kind of what you're looking at when you look at those things, and it's the same thing. I feel like in the industry that you guys have. I mean, people, they come in like, it's going to cost me this much to this. I said, you got to think about, we're bringing these things, we're bringing this equipment, we're bringing this experience. Hey, we're able to find where the water damage is, where you may not be. I mean, and so those are some things that you look at, that it's just about making sure it's done right and that you're taken care of. And that, it all goes back to having that strategy, and you're not hoping that you're doing it. You're doing it.
And I'll say this too. Just because you don't have a plan doesn't mean you may not be successful. It just means you may not be as successful as you could have been. So want to make that clear, that some people think, well, I don't have to have a plan. I just want to do X, whatever X is. You're right. Mm-hmm. But without the plan, you may not be as successful as you possibly could. And sometimes we may have to get uncomfortable and do things we don't like to do, we don't want to do, to help us get to that level. Probably, I think anyone, even on this podcast, if you're listening from wherever you are in the country, you know who Nick Saban is, probably the greatest of all time football coach. And he said, in order to be successful, ordinary people have to do things extraordinary. So he takes the ordinary people, and they have to do things extraordinary. They have to put in the extra work to do things. And it was interesting that the greatest football coach of all time in the 17 or 18-year history of whatever he had won, I don't even know how many national championships he won. I know he set the record.
I think we lost count.
And that's okay. That's fine. He probably could have won a couple more had he stuck around. Sure. But NIL probably got him, but we ain't going there. Today, as you think about this, about not giving up hope, know there's a God who loves you and gave himself for you. And if we turn to him, we can have the true hope. Adam and Brady talked about that. For you, the manager or employee who may be out there wondering, what is my next move for my career? Maybe you're in the position to learn, grow, and excel in doing the role that you're in currently to the best of your ability. Maybe try to learn right where you're at and do the right things to help you be able to go to the next level. Don't give up hope. For the owner, manager who's struggling to figure out your next step to grow, don't give up hope.
Yep.
Have a plan. Keep the attitude indicator in check, even though it might be a little foggy. Trust the process. Stay focused.
Yep.
You've got this.
Well, and remember, as you're talking about that, I've seen this all over social media, and I've always loved this quote. I believe it's a guy named Lewis. I think he's a strength and conditioning coach, or maybe he's a head coach. The reel's phenomenal. He says, lazy people do a little work and think they should be winning, right? Winners work as hard as possible and still worry if they're being lazy.
That's good. That'll preach right there.
Yeah.
That'll preach.
And so that's something to think about as you're doing these. If you don't have the strategy, you're thinking through these things. And which side am I on? Am I being lazy but thinking that I'm winning? Like, hey, man, I'm doing well and I don't feel like I'm working a lot. Or do you hustle? And that's where something I feel like where I'm at right now is like I can't shut my mind off, right? And I'm not saying that I'm not trying to say I'm a winner or anything like that. What I'm saying is I have a hard time shutting my mind off. Like I feel like there's always something I need to be doing. There's always something I need to be working on because I always need to be progressing and inching forward and being better than I was an hour ago, right? 30 minutes ago. And so those are the things. So as we wrap this one up, what I want to ask you guys just to leave for our listeners, for each of you, just your insight. Someone, whether they're a business owner, content creator, whether they're a volunteer at the church or church staff, any position you're in, what would you say to someone who feels like they're struggling right now to constantly say that they're using the word hope in what they're doing? I hope we see revenue. I hope we see revenue. I hope we see people come on Sunday. I hope people call and ask for business. What would you say to kind of wrap up today's show? What's advice would you give somebody that's dealing with that right now? That hope is really their strategy.
Yeah, I would say have the plan in place. Whatever that is, whatever industry you may be in, have the plan in place because you can have hope, but you also need a strategy and a plan to help you get there, right? Again, the dream can be a dream, but if you don't have a plan to get there, it may not happen the way you want it to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say two things. I think a lot of people may use the phrase, I don't have hope because they just don't know. And so part of, and I'll sound like a broken record. I know I've done this on probably both of our podcast episodes so far, but you got to be growing. You have to be learning. And the more data that you have in your mind and your brain, then it's going to give you more hope because you've got more things to pull from, and it helps you to make that plan. Number two is that, and this goes for leadership in general. If you are a leader of any type, whether it's in business, in church, and whatever, then you really should have a plan, number one. And number two, your people are expecting you to have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, whether it's a good plan or not, at least it's a plan.
Yeah.
But you should really have the roadmap of where you would like to go and get your team's input in that, but at least have a plan.
Hey, I'll say this, Brady, you just brought up a thought. Don't think for a second as a passenger on an airplane, I hope that the pilot has a plan.
Absolutely. I hope so too.
I hope they have a plan, but they have a strategy. And
if you catch yourself saying that, you might want to exit the plane.
Well, if you're up in the middle of the air, you can't do that.
So, well, guys, I think that's some great nuggets to go to. Like you heard Benji say, if it's something that you're dealing with, something that you're struggling with, if you got questions on how to develop strategy, you can go to our website. There's a place on that you can fill out. You can leave some information. obviously you can hit us up on any of the platforms, send us a DM, and we'll definitely get back to you on that. But I mean, these type of questions are great things that help us build episodes. If you've got something that you want to hear from Benji and Brady and you want the two of them to kind of share their insight on, drop it in. Doesn't matter what you think about the episode, what you think about the topic, anything that you have, I can promise you we'll find a way to turn it into an episode. We'll discuss it. We'll dive deep into it. We'll let you give you their thoughts on it. But again, great one to wrap up. It's good to be back again.
It's fun.
Ready to get some other ones recorded and get them out there. So Benji, I'll let you close it out and get them out of here.
Go out there and choose to live a higher up life. Appreciate you guys.